entire film in just one scene. People are inside a cube, they don't understand it, and there are traps. The scene has no dialogue or music apart from the cube itself moving and shifting. Like, imagine instead of this scene, you just had a text scroll or opening narration explaining the cube. It ruined the immersion this intro provides.
People were trapped inside the cube. The cube is bad. There are traps. I have to pay my ex-wife's alimony.
The film begins proper with the main cast being slowly introduced to each other, and every single person brings something unique to the table. One thing I really respect about this film is how it plays on how deceptive people naturally are. You have Quentin, the first character to physically appear, and comes across as your typical protagonist, assuming the leader role by being the first person to take control and calm the others down.
It's alright. I'm not gonna hurt you.
And opens up a dialogue on what other people's jobs were before the cube, telling the group he's a cop with 3 children. Worth, the glazed-eye nihilist who knows more about the cube than he's initially letting on. Leven, the youngest of the group and the most innocent, wearing her broken glasses she woke up with. Holloway, the doctor of the group, she's the first to lose her sanity inside the cube. Ironic, as doctors are meant to help people and keep composure.
They came into our homes. They stripped us bare. They took my rings. They took...
Also Ren, the knowledgeable old man of the group, teaching the others the basic rules of survival. And Kazan, someone who is incredibly mentally challenged and plays Fortnite all day.
This isn't Fortnite, bunnies. Stuck.
These are all pretty surface level descriptions and probably roll into other character tropes from other horror films. But keep in mind, all these people have only just met each other and want to work together to escape. Some more than others. But would you really share your entire past with strangers? Chances are you wouldn't. You just give them a superficial overview that makes you appear as best as you can possibly be. And as the film goes on, this mask starts to slip, and we see what happens when people are presented with their most primal instincts. By the way, the traps in the cube are great. They are just terrifying and play on a lot of body horror. But honestly, they take a real backseat in the film. Only 2 people actually die from traps. The rest of the deaths are caused from mistrust and betrayal building up in the group. Ironically, the traps aren't the real danger in this film. It's the people. The only concrete thing we have about any of these characters is the surname printed on their shirts, and no one knows how they got inside the cube.
Let's all just relax for a minute. Does anybody remember how they got here?
Characters try to speculate who or what made it, but each theory sounds as far-fetched as the last. Everything in the cube breathes hostility. The cold surfaces, the unfamiliar circuitry dancing on the walls. The only thing telling one room apart from the other is the colour used, which does play into the film, with white being a clear colour and characters usually learning something new here, and red representing blood and death, where characters are usually dying or being injured in these rooms. The cube really comes across as this malevolent force that can't and will never be truly understood.
Take a good long look-see. I got a feeling it's looking at us.
The film also has no real soundtrack apart from montages showing a large passage of time, and most of these sounds are diegetic, when the cube itself shifts around or Kazan tapping his head to keep himself calm. As characters progress into each room, they learn more about each other while simultaneously losing their grip on sanity.
He's the Wren. The bird of Attica flew the coop on 6 major prisons. 7.
You're kidding, right?
One character I really like is Ren. He's the one who teaches the group how to survive. He's basically the tutorial NPC and is killed off only when the other characters have learned everything they need to from him. And he dies in the most poetic way by having his face melted off.
Get him out!
Any sense of personality from him is gone, but he still lives on by the quirks other characters picked up of him. Like for example when he shows the group that sucking on the buttons from the shirts keeps their mouths full of saliva.
Suck on it. Keeps the saliva filled.
You can see characters sucking on buttons throughout the rest of the film. Quentin, who I mentioned earlier, starts off as the do-gooder protagonist. He groups everyone together, and by his logic,
I'm getting out of here no matter what.
but this does bring into question a lot of protagonists wanting to get from A to B. But what happens if the protagonist can't do that? What happens to them then? Do they compromise, or do they truly try to reach their goal no matter the cost? Quentin has a narrow viewpoint like most basic heroes. While other characters want to question what's around them, Quentin always asks what's directly in front of him.
Keep your head down. Keep it simple. Just look at what's in front of you.
Also, as a side note, he probably has the best one-liner when testing traps in the other rooms. But as the film goes on, we understand that Quentin is slowly becoming unhinged. We can see his gaze change whenever he thinks that no one is looking at him, summing everyone up for their worth. He also begins to prey on Leave and obsessing over her, which gets the attention of the others and doesn't go down too well.
Oh, that bottled up anger. Anything for young girls.
There's this scene where Quentin unknowingly sets up a trap, escapes alive but injured, and you can see his real character come out, aggressive and brutal. A lot of people would be angry in this scenario, but with Quentin, you can tell this is something he's been harboring a long time.
Somebody stop that racket! Shut the fucking door!
His initial introduction, you can see his hand covered in blood, and his excuse as to why is pretty weak.
Room down there, something almost cut my head off.
His chemistry with the other characters is incredibly volatile as the film goes on. The Dr. Holloway begins as a nervous wreck, but slowly adapts to the cube, respecting its rules. She's actually the
Leave me alone!
Stop
Stop trying to
in front
show
of
me
Quentin.
funny things.
And he's not.
Of course he is.
When we get to the edge, we can come back for him, but he'll get somebody through here. Am I right?
That was a mistake. My bloody sister walked into the room.
Human beings.
She always questions what the cube is and who put them there.
Why would they throw innocent people in here? Are we being punished?
She looks at the bigger picture, which goes directly against Quentin's logic of what's in front of them. She's someone that has no one to go back to. When other people lament about missing their family, all she wants is her materialistic things.
I haven't got anybody either, but I'm not giving up. I am pissed off. They stripped us bare. They took my rings. They took... Oh my goodness.
She later develops into a leader from taking care of Kazan, the mentally challenged character they find later in the film.
Your boy's having a conniption sitting there. Get some conniptions.
This shows that she's still an empathetic and caring character, and this worries Quentin because he knows he's only leader by strength. Later in the film, when the group discover the outside of the cube, Holloway makes the sacrifice to go venture the vast abyss. She nearly dies, but is actually saved by Quentin, only for him to help her up to the last moment and then drop her. He only saved her to prove to himself that he's still the leader and he decides who lives and who dies. It's a nice touch that Holloway has the same expression with her first and last encounter with Quentin. Worth is another character who clashes with Quentin, initially the nihilist of the group. I could only really compare him with Nick from Left 4 Dead.
Hey, Ellis. Shut up contest. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Someone who has such a cynical tone, he initially pushes everyone in the group away from him. He's actually the first to accept the cube's rules, but doesn't see the cube as beatable. When Ren dies, everyone is in a panic, while he just stares, accepting of his death.
1 down, 4 to go.
He's actually one of the only people to openly mock Quentin, making us initially believe that he's the antagonist. But Worth is someone who's afraid to show emotion, as cynical people are usually scared of getting anything less than they hope,